Okay, continuing on our series. This is the eighth team. We're doing Andre and Jersey Devils. Andre went for a very different look than I am accustomed to seeing. So let's kind of just like jump into it and unlock it. So third pick, $65, Christian McCaffrey. So what do we know about Christian McCaffrey? I took him last year. I spent a lot of money on him. We don't need to get too much into that. 2 years in a row, he's been hurt. He's only played 10 games the last 2 years, so that's really the big unknown. He is only 26, and when he's healthy, he's really good. Um, but yeah, he was a top 15 running back in every single game he played in. It's just a matter of can he stay healthy? But if he's healthy, you know he'll get over 200 carries. You'll know he'll get over 90 receptions. How healthy is he going to be? That's really the guess. Nobody knows. I think we'll project out that he's healthy just for this exercise, which is why you pay the 65. So I don't know if he'll get 1,000 yards rushing. I think Deontay Freeman will cut into that, and that'll try and keep him healthy. But even if he's getting the ball like 25 times a game, like that's still like he'll probably get like 900 yards rushing, 8 touchdowns, another like 90 receptions, and like 600, 700 yards receiving. So we're talking like a 1,600 yard player with another few touchdowns, so like 10, 11 touchdowns, which is obviously a top three, top three-ish running back. And for 65, I mean, that's a steal. It's just, can he stay healthy? So we've been waiting for 2 years. Is the third year the charm? That's what we're hoping to see. I can't go too much into it because, like, honestly, for the price, I think it's worth the plunge. I was thinking he was probably going to go for, like, what? We saw Jonathan Taylor go for 75. I thought he'd be around that, but I mean, the next closest was Dalvin Cook at 71. I think McCaffrey's got more upside than Cook. He's just more of an injury risk. So I'm surprised we didn't go for Jonathan Taylor, who's been healthy, and we took a plunge on a guy who hasn't been healthy for 2 years. Then at 5 overall, we spent a little bit more money, so $67 on Derrick Henry. I mean, Henry was crazy in the 7 weeks that he played. 8 weeks? He got hurt in week 8, so basically 7.5 weeks that he played. I mean, he was the number one fantasy running back. But at the same time, you knew when you watched them, he was getting the ball like 32 times a game. Like, that's not sustainable. Again, a big stat I pulled was just like, no one had that kind of workload since O.J. Simpson in 1972 with the Buffalo Bills. It's just not a sustainable amount. They ran him into the ground. And so, yeah, he missed half the season. He broke his foot. He's got like a giant, basically nail in his Achilles essentially now. But this is a super duper run heavy offense. So the question is, A, has Tennessee learned and will they ease up on his workload? And B, will Derrick Henry stay healthy? For this exercise, we will assume he stays healthy. And so I could see Tennessee running him into the ground, probably getting like 330 carries, probably like 1,400 yards rushing, probably 11 touchdowns, and then kicking a couple hundred yards receiving with another touchdown. So 12 touchdowns, also a 1,600 yard player, just like McCaffrey. If he stays healthy, he's worth the price. If he doesn't, then obviously it was a waste. So last year was the first year with real concerns of that. But at the same time, and he never really came off the field, which I don't mind. What I mind is just like, you can't, like, you know, if you're up like 21 points and he's gotten like 29 carries, maybe we ought to just like kind of chill and put in the backup and keep him fresh for the next game. I'm sure, fantasy players will be like, oh, but I want more fantasy points. But what you actually want is for him to be healthy the whole season. Those fantasy points in a game where he's already got 30 fantasy points don't really matter as much as, him not playing. So hopefully he stays healthy. Tennessee will use him until he gets hurt again. So it's just a matter of, can he stay healthy? But I mean, he's a battering ram. He doesn't catch the ball a lot. I mean, I think last year, if he stayed healthy the whole year, he was probably going to get like 35 receptions. So he's just going to run up the hole. That's what he does. So he wasn't terribly efficient, but we got to see how healthy he is. But they're a super run heavy offense. He's going to get the ball a lot. Let's see what he's got. So we spent a lot. That is an understatement. Whew. Okay, so we've spent $132, 41 overall, $10. Okay, good deal. Cordero Patterson. So Patterson finally had his breakout. Matthew Berry's been calling for Cordero Patterson for years and years, and last year it happened. 600 yards rushing, 550 yards receiving, 11 touchdowns. Big play Cordero. He was the number 10 running back in fantasy. He was tremendous. I don't know if he will get as much work in Atlanta this year. They've brought in Drake London, so Calvin Ridley got hurt, and it was very much the Cordero, Patterson, Kyle Pitts show. I don't know if he'll get as much work with Drake London, with Kyle Pitts. They brought in Tyler Algier, who I'm kind of dreaming on, hoping he turns into something. They also brought in Damian Williams, who won a Super Bowl with the Chiefs 3 years ago. So I don't know if he'll get as much work as he did last year, but even so, like if they just use him kind of the same way, so like kind of a receiver, kind of like a mini Deebo Samuel. So like maybe he gets only 500 yards rushing and maybe only like 400 yards receiving, but he still gets like 5 touchdowns. I mean, that makes him like an RB3. But, for $10 for a flex, after seeing what he did last year, I don't mind the pick. I mean, there are some players who might be like he's kind of like around Adam Thielen's level when taken in totality. So, yeah, $10, that's a good price for a flex after spending so much money at the top. 67 overall, another 10. Favorite of Andre's, Amari Cooper, back to the well. He left the Cowboys. He's on the Browns. OBJ is gone. Jarvis Landry's gone. Baker Mayfield's gone. The O-line's still good. Nick Chubb's still good. Kareem Hunt's still good. Watson's not coming till week 12. So we got Brissett, and that's really the thing. How much is Brissett going to be able to feed Amari Cooper? There's not really another viable receiver. I mean, someone might sell me on like David Bell or David Njoku, but I'm not buying. There's not really another viable receiver on the Browns. So they're paying him $20 million. He's only 27. But Brissett's not great. I mean, Cooper had an all right year last year. 865 yards, 8 touchdowns. That's really what helped him. I think he'll get, obviously, more receptions just because of, like, he's the number 1 now, and there's not really anything else to compete with. Last year there was Michael Gallup and Cedric Wilson and CeeDee Lamb. Really, it's just him and Kareem Hunt fighting for, like, target share. And I guess maybe some in David Njoku. But I could see, like, 900 yards receiving. I could see, like, maybe a slight touchdown regression, so maybe, like, 6 or 7. Which makes him about around what we just did with Cordero Patterson. So he's like a wide receiver 4 flex option. But considering how high-end our top 2 running backs are, I mean, I don't mind it. He's our number 1. Well, we're dreaming on him being a number 1 kind of receiver. But, I don't mind it. 71 overall, $4. Russell Wilson, another favorite of Andre's. So, yeah, he got hurt last year. I mean, we made a bet on Lamar Jackson and Russell Wilson, and Lamar Jackson had the better year. Even with his injury, he was still better than Russell Wilson because Russell Wilson also got injured. And the Seahawks are terrible. So I'm happy for him. He got out of there. He's in Denver. The O-line's better. He's got some better. He's got, I wouldn't say better receiving options. I would say maybe a little worse because I mean, I like Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, but I like DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett more. Really, the thing is, I gotta see with Denver how much are we passing? What kind of offense are we doing? I know they brought in the Packers offensive coordinator, but I still want to see how this offense is going to be built exactly. I don't know if it's going to be high-flying Aaron Rodgers kind of offense. The way he's talked, the way he's used the team, it's more been about like a West Coast style offense, the way Jimmy Garoppolo was used in San Francisco. So I'm kind of going to split the difference. I think he's going to be like a back end, maybe top 10 quarterback. I don't know. There's a lot of guys like that. Like, you're not going to like that I'm going to basically put him around the same realm as Dak Prescott, but the difference is, like, I know for a fact Prescott's going to throw. I don't know if Denver's going to throw, because they're probably going to have leads, and they have a really good running back. Well, yeah, really good running back in Javonte Williams, who ought to get the ball a lot. So I could see a good season, like 33 touchdowns, 4,100 yards. Getting him for $4 is pretty good. I'd rather get. I mean, there were a lot of deals at quarterback. So Lamar Jackson went for 5. Patrick Mahomes went for 9. Jalen Hurts, who I like, went for 6. Kyler Murray went for 5. Dak went for 2. So, is he in the realm of possibility being a top 5 quarterback? I mean, I guess it's in the realm of possibility. I really just got to see what the offense is. I mean, I don't mind the price because, again, all of the quarterbacks, except for maybe Brady in our league, were underpaid. So, yeah, I like him. I think the thing for him is, like, last year he had his lowest amount of rushing. He actually does rush a little bit, and those rushes are important because they give him a little bit of a buffer. So I'm hoping for a little bit more rushing, to be honest with you, from Russell Wilson. I mean, he's a very talented player. That back end in Seattle was ugly, but I blame that more on the situation. I think he'll be a good player. It's really a matter of seeing how opened up is this offense. Like, what does it look like exactly? But for $4, I mean, you like the guy. I know he's a favorite of yours, so like I don't mind the price at all. And just like I don't know what it is, if there's something in the water or what you guys are doing, but like a lot of you guys are like stacking a quarterback with a receiver. So like Brian did Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith. Sarah did Derek Carr and Devontae Adams. And you are doing, Mac did Dak Prescott and Michael Gallup. And we are doing here with Andre, we're doing Russell Wilson and Jerry Jeudy. So you got Jerry Jeudy at 74 for 21. This is kind of a weird one. So, like, you're betting on Wilson to take the step and be excellent. But you're also betting on Jeudy, who was a first-round pick a few years ago, I want to say 2020. So it's 2022. So we're going into his third year. You're betting on Jeudy taking the next step when he's never been a top 40 receiver, but he's a really bad quarterback play and bad coaching. So he's young. He was very talented coming out of Alabama. I thought he was the best receiver in that class, to be honest with you, in 2020. He's also competing with Cortland Sutton, who I like more as the deep threat. If Cortland Sutton is the deep threat like Tyler Lockett, then Jerry Jeudy is the explosive player like DK Metcalf. Or is it the other? No, I would say it's the other way around. Cortland Sutton is more of the explosive player like DK Metcalf, and therefore Jerry Jeudy is more like Lockett, who operates underneath. So I think he will take the step. I think he will be. There's the possibility that he's the number one receiver on your fantasy team. I don't think he will be like that good. Like, I mean, some of the fantasy guys we've been talking about, like Deebo Samuel had 1,700 yards last year. Justin Jefferson had 1,600 yards last year. Cooper Kupp had 1,900 yards last year. Like, those are top 3. Like, I don't think he's going to do that. Just, that's crazy. Devontae Adams had 1,500 yards. So it is hard to be a top 5 fantasy player at wide receiver. It is hard. So I don't think he's going to do that, mostly because Courtland Sutton's really talented too. But I think he'll break 1,000 yards. I think he'll get like 7 touchdowns, and that makes him like a viable wide receiver 3, wide receiver flex guy. He's a really good player. There's the possibility for more depending on how much that Denver offense has opened up. They've really kept it under wraps during the preseason, so I don't know a whole lot about it. I like Javonte Williams, but we'll get to that later. But yeah, I like Jeudy on like talent and he's super duper elite at things that I like. He's like an elite. He's really good route runner. He's really good at reading coverage. He's just real smart. So I think he will fill the Tyler Lockett role. I think that he ought to get the ball more than like this. This is a really talented offense. Russell Wilson ought to be able to get him the ball. They ought to be in a bunch of shootouts against like the Chargers, the Raiders, and the Chiefs. So I mean, there were players around this price too, but they also don't offer the kind of upside he does. So I like the pick. It's just a matter of like, is it him or Sutton, or is someone going to be like the alpha number 1 guy, or is they going to share? I don't really know how that's going to work. There's unknowns in Denver. 83 overall, last a little bit of splurge, $12, Hunter Renfrow. Renfrow might, if Davante Adams wasn't there, Renfrow might lead the league in receptions. But now Davante Adams has come into the Raiders. He is the guy. Darren Waller's back and he's healthy. But, we like Renfrow. He's never finished lower than 13th in targets, receptions, touchdowns, and fantasy points. He's a perfect fit as a slot receiver in a Josh McDaniels offense. Just like he's like a carbon copy clone of Wes Welker. So, I mean, last year he had 103 receptions. I don't know if he'll get that many, if only because Davante Adams is there, and I project Davante Adams to get 110 receptions. But I could see like 85, 90 receptions, maybe like 850 yards and 7 touchdowns, which makes him, again, probably around the same level, a little bit less than Patterson and Cooper, but he's like a good guy off your bench you like. But for you, he's a flex, but he's very, very safe, considering like Jeudy, we haven't really seen it from, and Cooper's in a new place, and Patterson's coming off a breakout outlier year. Among the 4 of them, he is the safest guy because, like, even though it's a bit of a new offense, he has rapport with Derek Carr, and he's going to get a bunch of receptions, and he's really good at getting open in the slot. It's just a matter of how much is he going to be fed with Davante Adams there. So, after that, 84 overall, we took Michael Thomas, $2. I'll get more into that because we traded him to me. So I guess I'll go over that in my little draft preview, and we'll just kind of keep it on like who I trade you. So I gave you DJ Chark, who was kind of up and down the last few years for like Jacksonville, because Jacksonville is a place where fantasy points go to die. He had a breakout year, his rookie year, with over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns, and he was like the 17th best fantasy receiver. He was really, really good. But last year was miserable. I mean, Urban Meyer was there, it was miserable. Trevor Lawrence is super talented, it was miserable. So, yeah, I think his season ended on a broken ankle. Rough. That being said, there are a lot of things pointing up in Detroit. The offensive line is good. They have a new offensive coordinator. They have a good rushing attack with DeAndre Swift. Jameson Williams is missing. He tore his ACL in January, so he's not there. I guess, you and I can like TJ Hawkinson, but he's not a number 1. That was a bad pick by Matt Patricia. Like, tight end, really? So, they really do just need... I remember they had to pull... they have Amon-Ra St. Brown, but he was a 4th-round pick. He looked good last year, but, they were desperate for pass catchers. They pulled Josh Reynolds off the waiver wire for the Rams and just kind of threw him in because they were desperate for pass catchers. So I like DJ Chark. I've always felt he's had quite a bit of talent. He's just been kind of stuck in Jacksonville. So now he's 25. He's in a good situation. It's just a matter of can Jared Goff get him the ball. I've always seen DJ Chark as a little bit lesser version of another favorite of mine, which is Allen Robinson, also a guy who had to escape Jacksonville to really shine. I could see Chark getting something akin to like 65, 70 receptions, maybe 900 yards, and 7 touchdowns because he is a red zone favorite. I like him. I like him a lot. I like the Lions offense. I don't like Jared Goff, but everything around him just tells me that they're going to be better. He's an instant, like, very safe starter for you if something happens or someone disappoints. If, like, Amari Cooper's no good with Jacoby Brissett, for example, I could just plug in DJ Chark and not really worry about it because I know he's going to get touches in that Lions offense, which needs pass-catching talent. And Chark has always been very, very talented. It's just, can you get him the ball? So I like DJ Chark a lot. I was surprised I got him for $2. He's always been a favorite of mine because he reminds me a lot of Allen Robinson. And he's still only 25. So I like him a lot. I think he's a perfect fit for your team just because you really need someone who can step in with all the unknowns. Even though I guess he's in a new situation, he's in a better situation. So I'm okay on betting on him improving in said situation. After that, we took Dontrell Hilliard, $1.89, $1. Hilliard, I believe, some people might not believe me, but I think he's beaten out Hassan Haskins for the number 2 job with Derrick Henry. He's looked really good. Really good. He played well down the stretch last year when they brought him in. He's 27. He's the handcuff to Derrick Henry. He was if Derrick Henry's a battering ram, Dontrell Hilliard's more like a hammer. So, he's about 66% of what Derrick Henry is. So if Derrick Henry, something happened to him, obviously you're not going to get all of the fantasy production because he's still really talented. But Hilliard is a decent stand-in. He can get the job done. And I'm happy for him as a 27-year-old guy who's been grinding in the league to finally get this opportunity to be a number 2 because it tells me that he's hungry. And more so than anything else, talent and consistency can beat talent. And Hilliard may not have as much talent as a lot of running backs in the NFL or guys who get drafted, but he has been working his way. I remember when he was on the Browns practice squad, he's been fighting and grinding, trying to get just an opportunity to stick on an NFL roster. And he's, after all of this time, 5 years later, he's done it. So I like him in the sense that I know that if something happens to Derrick Henry, you'll be in good hands because if nothing else, Hilliard will outwork you. He's good in pass protection. He's very airtight on his reads with that. He keeps Ryan Tannehill up. I like him a lot for that. So he's going to get some plays at third down back. But that's a good pick, if only because you're handcuffing Derrick Henry. And probably not a lot of people saw that. Probably a lot of people thought maybe Haskins was the guy, but Hilliard's looked good. Hilliard's really taken the experience of grinding in the NFL to make himself into a viable backup. That's super cool. We took Benny Snell. We've since cut Benny Snell. Who do we pick up instead of Benny Snell? We picked up D'Onta Foreman. We spent $20 of waiver money, so that's obviously a lot. No one was even put in a dollar bid for him, so you could have just thrown at $5 and see what happened. But Foreman looked good also, sharing the timeshare with Hilliard up in Tennessee after Henry got hurt. So now he's the handcuff to Christian McCaffrey, funny enough. So he's beaten out Chuba Hubbard, which was a surprise. But I thought D'Onta Foreman was a pretty good back when he got drafted by the Texans in 2017. There were quite a few backs in that draft. But he blew out his knee his rookie year, and he wasn't the same. But he's always had pretty good talent. He's 233 pounds. Last year, he had 566 yards rushing, so Hilliard was the third down pass catcher, and Foreman was the basically bulldozer, so to speak. And so if McCaffrey gets hurt, Foreman's a good insurance policy. Again, I think he's like 66% of what Christian McCaffrey is at his best. McCaffrey's like a Pro Bowl player. Derrick Henry's a Pro Bowl player when they're at 100%. You're not going to get that when they get hurt. But if they get hurt, their stand-ins are decent. They're okay. You will get by with them. And I think D'Onta Foreman does have some talent. Another guy, I mean, he was drafted higher, so he didn't really have to grind like Hillard. He had some chances. He just kind of blew them. But it seems like it's humbled him. I'm happy for him. He's won the backup job in Carolina. He had more talent than Hillard, but he didn't have the same consistency. So I guess both of them sharpened each other. So now they're both backups. Fun stuff to see in the NFL. But yeah, no, I think that's a really good. You got to protect your investment. So after that, we got Sonny Michel. So Michel is now with the Chargers. He was the Rams last year. He got cut by the Dolphins. We're still kind of figuring out the Chargers backfield behind Austin Eckler because what is it? We have Joshua Kelly and Donald Browntree, and then we took Isaiah Spiller out of Texas A&M, but now we signed Sonny Michel. So all of that, mixing all of that in, I kind of think Michel is probably the backup. He was drafted in the first round. He won a Super Bowl with Tom Brady in New England. He's now won a Super Bowl, kind of being like the quasi guy after like Cam Akers was pretty bad in the playoffs for the Rams. If something happens to Eckler, Michel's the rusher. So he had 845 yards in between Darrell Henderson being hurt and Cam Akers being hurt last year on the Rams. I don't think he'll do that because Eckler's really good. But hey, you lucked into Austin Eckler's handcuff. If Eckler gets hurt, it's probably Michel soaking up quite a bit of that work as the rusher. So 300 yards, maybe 61 yards receiving, but he has more utility to whoever owns Eckler, just because he's the handcuff. I mean, they wouldn't have signed him if he wasn't. So they would have just gone with Isaiah Spiller. So yeah, good dollar throw for some value. $2.27 $1, Robbie Anderson. Robbie Anderson was miserable last year. He was, I want to say, the 19th best fantasy player. He was a top 20 receiver the year before, and last year he was 50th. So, is there the possibility? They have DJ Moore, who's the number one now. They trade for Laviska Shenault, who's probably the slot. So I guess Robbie Anderson is the number two still. Can Baker Mayfield get him the ball in space? I don't know. So Anderson's kind of like an interesting player in the sense that we've seen it before, but he can be very inefficient. He does have a case of the dropsies. He'll just drop balls quite a bit, and he needs to get more downfield. Back when he was with the Jets. So it's a dart throw. I think there are better upside plays than him just because he looked so miserable last year. But maybe he's not washed up. Maybe there is still something there, but he was really bad. He looked really bad last year. He couldn't read. He's never been able to read coverage. He was just using his speed, and it looks like he lost a step. But we'll say 750 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's like a wide receiver 6. I'd probably really consider just letting him go and getting some upside receiver that I like because, I don't know how much upside there is in the Panthers offense. We took OBJ at $2.32 for $1. We've since cut OBJ. We took Russell Gage, who was on Robbie's team, and we talked about. So, Russell Gage is a nice guy. He had 4 touchdowns. He was the number 1 in Atlanta last year when Calvin Ridley got suspended and hurt, and with all the mental health stuff. So, super pass-heavy offense in Tampa, but he's also behind Mike Evans, Julio Jones, and whenever he's healthy, Chris Godwin. So, we'll have to see what Gage looks like when everybody's healthy. I think he's questionable to even start the year. I'm pretty sure he's he's got a leg injury or something. I think he'll probably play week 1, but I'm gonna have to wait and see. So, probably around 700 yards. There'll be weeks where he's startable. weeks where he's not usable, kind of like Dawson Knox with Buffalo on Sarah's team at the back end. I would just want maybe more of an upside play. But, he's a nice player, and he'll have some weeks where he's fantasy relevant. So, what do we think? So, it's really interesting. You are the opposite of Sarah's team. Sarah's like double heavy wide receiver. You are double heavy running back. You've obviously protected your investments now with Dontrell Hilliard and Deontay Foreman. But really, it's going to be down to like what kind of you need the superstar running backs to be superstars, because the receiving core is obviously below average at best. If Jeudy breaks out with Russell Wilson, that can be your saving grace. But Cooper's going to be rough with Jacoby Brissett. Renfro, I got to see what happens with Devontae Adams there, and I like Cordero Patterson. I don't know if his season will be as good as last year, though. So, I like the team. The team has one of the highest projections, though, because of the two superstar running backs. I haven't seen a team built like this in our league since year 2 with David having Marshawn Lynch and Adrian Peterson on the same team. So obviously it's going to be lacking depth because you have the two superstar running backs, but most week that's not going to matter because the two superstar running backs are just going to bludgeon the hell out of people. So really it's how long do they stay healthy? Can they stay healthy the whole year? If they can stay healthy the whole year, you have a title contender. If one of them goes down, you're probably back-end fantasy playoffs team. If they both go down, you're struggling to get the playoffs. Those are really 3 true outcomes, which is funny because last year you had one really good anchor running back in Jonathan Taylor, but then you took you got Leonard Fournette, you got Darrell Henderson Jr., you got Cooper Kupp, you got Jamar Chase, all of them for under $30. So this year it was just surprising. It's befuddling because you went completely away from that and just poured over half your cash into players, and then just pieced together the rest of the lineup very carefully. I think you ought to really consider cleaning up the back end. I mean, if something were to happen to Cooper or Jeudy or Renfro or Patterson, I guess you could throw in Chark, but I don't know about the other guys. Anderson was bad last year. Gage was decent on Atlanta, but there's a lot of unknowns in Tampa, at least with his role, because there's so many people to feed. So I would be on the lookout again of just being paying attention to the waiver wire. I mean, you could use some upside play. What do we have? Alec Pierce is the number 2 on the Colts, and we like Matt Ryan. I've seen him be able to feed multiple wide receivers. That'd be kind of someone that I'd be interested in rather than old Robbie Anderson who's competing for targets, and now Christian McCaffrey's back and we have Baker Mayfield. Cool. Robbie Anderson might be okay, but he looked bad last year. He just looked washed up. So if Brian is an A- and Sarah's a B+, and Robbie's a B+, I'm probably going to give you a B. I'll give you a B because I definitely like your draft more than I like, say, Mac or Steffens. But at this, maybe even Patrick's too, because the two twin running backs can just bludgeon people. But it's a health question more so because it really is a roll of the dice. McCaffrey hasn't been healthy a whole year in 3 years, and Henry missed half the year last year. So I'm going to give you a B because you can be a title contender on the high end, but you can miss the playoffs on the low end. So we shall see how it goes. It's a great experiment, though. I think it's super interesting going double running back like this, especially getting a deal on both of them. So I like the team. I like the team just in the sense that it's something different. A lot of people try different strategies, and this is something different. You are the opposite of Sarah, who went double wide receiver. So we'll see how it goes. But really, the upside plays are Jeudy and Wilson, and your saving graces, McCaffrey and Henry. How far can they take you? They could take you to a title. They could sink your ship. It's all about the two workhorse backs.